It is Thanksgiving week, and there's a lot on our plate here at Boxing Scene Today. Why? Courtesy of a very entertaining card from Saudi Arabia. Of course, some big steps forward for some big names in the sport. Gives us a lot to deal with. Fortunately, got the guys to do that. Jimmy Smith in studio alongside the champ, Paulie Malignaggi, Chris Algieri joining us via Zoom. The biggest start has to be the biggest story. That is David Benavidez, Anthony Yarde. Benavidez looking absolutely fantastic. But Paulie, this was one of those, it seemed like from the beginning, Yarde was throwing what you call, get off me punches. He wasn't really being authoritative with his offense. Not that he didn't want to be there, but he was kind of waiting for the opportunity to unload. The opportunity never came.
Never came. And I think Yarde was sort of had some trepidation about the pace Benavidez could bring. So I think Yarde, it played on his mind. The way, if you look at the way the fight's going on, Yarde isn't the type of guy who throws stay away from me punches because he's scared. He's not a scared guy. We've seen him time and again. He's a ballsy guy, gutsy guy. But I think where he did have trepidation was the fear of maybe the pace getting away from him, because everybody knows Benavidez brings a pace, especially even in the second half of the fight. And being that Yarde has a little bit of a front runner reputation, I think he was trying to make sure, okay, in case there's a surge by Benavidez in pace, I got to make sure I can hold it off. So he ended up fighting a fight where he was sort of doing damage control instead of trying to win. Maybe it was a bit too much overthinking, but a guy like Benavidez will have that effect on you.
Yeah, the entire card, Chris, was extremely entertaining. This fight kind of being the only one dud in that Benavidez was in control the entire time. There wasn't a whole lot of drama. And when he wanted to close the show, he did. Great hand speed, great accuracy, great power.
Yeah, I was a little let down by this fight. I expected this to be a really good one. I was giving a glowing, you know, report about Anthony Yarde, one of my favorite British fighters, and he just didn't bring it. He didn't have the same intensity. He didn't have the same go out in a shield type mentality that we've seen in the past. It could be, like you said, champ, just the mindset of dealing with Benavidez and the pace that he sets could be it, or it could just be that this is the last time we're going to see Anthony Yarde at the championship level, because I've always said, like, once you learn how to submit and how to fold, that doesn't leave you. And to me, it looked like he went out there and folded under the pressure of the big fight of fighting David Benavidez. But that's not taking anything away from Benavidez. He looked phenomenal. He put it in Yarde's mind that he was going to have to deal with this pace, and that he was better off getting out of there than staying in there. And I agree, Champ. I think that early on, maybe trying to slow the pace early on and not get into like a big fight. Like you always talk about, like, you're fighting a Mexican fighter. Don't don't wake the sleeping bear. Let sleeping dogs lie, or whatever that saying is. It kind of seemed like he was doing that, but by the time he realized that he was behind, he was way behind. And there, Benavidez just takes over, and I mean, he's just so relentless. Power punches from every angle. Doesn't let you breathe. He's a big guy, so it seems like he can hit you at any part of the ring. And listen, he's got defense too. His plus minus his score is very, very high. So he overwhelms guys. They don't really have a chance to get an offense going. And on top of that, we saw that with Anthony Yarde. Even for punchers, they tend to be more hesitant and don't throw it full blast. Anthony Yarde normally is a super explosive guy who throws hard. He wasn't really throwing hard punches. He couldn't get anything off, and he couldn't get anything going. David Benavidez is a scary, scary guy, and being trapped in a ring with him is an issue for anyone in these weight classes, whether 75 or cruiserweight.
And I think also, that you brought up the sleeping dog, let sleeping dogs lie. And it applies a lot to Mexican fighters who want to brawl and want to fight, even technical brawlers. But it's because some of them, or a lot of them, sometimes have slow feet. So you can sort of, bring the pace down a little bit, and then don't engage them too much to let the pace get away from you. The problem with Benavidez is he's got fast feet too. So you can't really let the sleeping dog lie, because he's never actually sleeping. He's one of those kind of guys. He's closing the gap on you faster and faster.
Yeah, he's
and
always
faster.
on you.
Yeah.
He's
so
always on you.
even when it's a slower pace, Benavidez is still fast by the standards of everybody else.
It looks like Zurdo Ramirez, Mexican Independence Day, that is the fight he wants next. This idea that he's planting his flag, not just as a top Mexican star, but Chris, also as maybe the flag carrier of boxing over the next few years.
He's taking a shot at Canelo. I don't care what anybody says. He's like, May 3rd, I'm fighting Zurdo Ramirez. Okay. I mean, I'm moving up in weight, and I'm going to fight one of the baddest men around. And listen, I love the fight. I'm a little disappointed because I would like to see Benavidez spend a little more time at 75. I want to see the Bivol match. I would love to see him with Beterbiev. I think those three guys could have a great series of fights. But I'm not mad at this matchup. If I'm not going to get Benavidez in with the top 75 pounders, hell, are you going to go in with Zurdo Ramirez? I am all for that. I think that is a fantastic matchup. I actually rate Zurdo very, very highly. And he's another guy. There are some similarities in the style. He's a southpaw, not a righty like Benavidez is, but he throws a lot of punches. He has fast hands. He's coming from a smaller weight class, and he overwhelms guys with volume and body punching and a good stiff jab. So there's a lot of similarities in their matchup, but really curious to see how this one plays out. What David Benavidez is going to look like. It's one thing to move on weight. It's another thing to move on weight and fight one of the top guys in the division. I mean, Zurdo's number one and number two. It's probably Opetai's number one and Zurdo's number two. And he's going right for the top guys. So I love the way Benavidez moves. And again, you got to think that this is a shot at Canelo Alvarez because all week he was saying, I'm going to spend 5 years at 75. The Canelo fight's not off the table. Meanwhile, he already knows he has a deal set for May 2nd fighting Zurdo Ramirez, but he's putting all that out there for us to talk about and chew on. And, he still takes a little dig at Canelo. And then right after the fight, he says, I'm moving up to cruiserweight to fight Zurdo Ramirez May say. I mean, I love the way he moves. I love the way he operates. Ballsy move once again for Benavidez. Let's see how it plays out.
I wasn't crazy about it at first, because I thought I want to see him get a shot at the light heavyweight title. There's some really mouth-watering matchups for the light heavyweight titles at light heavyweight, but as in the last couple of days, it's grown on me, especially the whole Mexican Independence weekend thing, because at first I wasn't even thinking about the fact that it's going to be Mexican Independence, so it applies here. The shoe fits, so to speak, because we're always used to the Mexican Independence weekends in May and Cinco De Mayo and the September Mexican Independence, where the biggest fights of the year happen. But typically, I think it's still a bit more special if you keep it cultural. And this fight, and not that there's anything against what Mayweather did. I get it. You want to have the biggest fights of the year because also Mexicans just love boxing in general, right? But to keep it cultural, I think is pretty cool. And if you get away from the cultural aspect of it, you might lose it altogether if people get too used to it. So to bring it back to a Mexican culture thing instead of where I get it, Canelo's Mexican too, but
it was
yes. Canelo against an Uber driver for the last couple of years. It was like, okay, bro, enough with this. Like now we actually are a matchup. We got a real matchup for Mexican independence, and it's two Mexicans. It's Zurdo, the Mexican from there, and Benavidez, the Mexican from here. It's got that head-on collision type of feel as well. That's what I want to see. I want to see that. So. Yeah, I do want to see Benavidez at light heavyweight, but maybe he can go back to light heavyweight later. I don't know. Zurdo and Benavidez, it applies. The shoe fits. Cinco de Mayo weekend. Let's do it.
It gets the Paulie seal of approval. But, Chris, we got to shift gears a little bit. If there was one fighter that we had a question mark about last weekend, it would have been Devin Haney. Of course, the Ryan Garcia fight, that's a no contest. We know how he looked in that fight. Last time out, he was in the Times Square fight, a little hesitant. He silenced the doubters in a big way against Brian Norman Jr., displayed power, displayed the ring generalship and the boxing skills. An impressive performance, to say the least, Chris. What did you think of it?
Wasn't any question marks to me.
Yeah.
This is exactly how I expected this fight to go. Brian Norman is very, very good, and he is a devastating puncher when you stand in front of him. But he has never been 12 rounds. He's never fought a world-class guy yet. Devin Haney has way too much experience. And the guy can move. He's got great feet and a good jab and an excellent gas tank. So this fight kind of went the way I expected. I did not expect him to drop Norman early and bust his nose up the way he did. But Devin looked sharp, and he didn't look hesitant. He didn't look like he did against Ramirez when he was avoiding the left hook. And Brian Norman has a great left hook as well. He stayed in the pocket at times. He slowed the pace down, which is a good thing to do against a power puncher. I think it was a very classy performance. A lot of people are knocking it because it wasn't that exciting, but I still thought it was pretty high-level stuff, and that's what you do with a puncher. And especially if you're expected to lose, and then you go out there and you put up a 9-10 rounds and you score a knockdown. So this is one of those fights where I think a lot of people, and listen, again, I'm in gyms to this day, and I'm around a lot of young guys, and everybody was talking about this fight, and majority of people that I talked to were saying Brian Norman was going to knock Devin Haney out. And I was the one there like going like, I don't see that happening. So much so I actually put my bet in about a month ago when Devin was actually plus money. So I put my money where my mouth is, and it worked out.
I bet the distance.
I mean,
Yeah.
how could you not?
I couldn't make up my mind.
Right?
So I couldn't go either
No,
way.
you definitely could not.
That was
Because
it.
if you thought Norman was going to win, you're not going to think he's going to win by points. You
Yeah.
think he's going to win
Yeah.
by KO.
Yeah.
So that's a smart bet as well.
Yeah, but also Devin is hard to stop. I think Devin. If
Yes.
Devin, my thinking behind that was, I mean, I guess we're turning into a gambling show here.
Yeah,
but
whatever. Go ahead.
My thinking behind that was Devin showed a lot of guts, a lot of balls in the Ryan Garcia fight. So even if you think he's not the puncher and he loses to Norman, he doesn't go away that easily. So yeah, if Norman was going to win, it was going to be maybe some knockdowns, but Devin wasn't going to go away. You know what I mean? That's why Devin was going to lose on points, or Devin could outbox Norman, and then you got what you got. Even still, the side of me that was thinking Devin could win, because I had an argument for both sides in my head. I couldn't really go with one side or the other. The odds were very close. That's why I just thought, you know what, this is a distance fight. But the side of me that was thinking, okay, Devin could win this way, and that way, still couldn't see a domination. That was pretty dominant.
Yeah.
That was really interesting and impressive because, as you said, Champ, it's also as an underdog. I think winning as an underdog, you do it enough times, you start to carve out the real legacy. You know, it's like that's why Ali was real special, because he not only was great on so many levels, but also there's several fights where he had to win as an underdog. It's a major underdog, you know? I think sometimes that's where Floyd doesn't get enough credit, is because he was so good that he couldn't be an underdog that much. But Floyd still dominated when the odds were close in the Corrales fight. I remember, I'm old enough to remember people going both ways.
Crushed him.
In the pre-fight talk about which way that fight's going to go. I'm old enough to remember that talk. And everybody might say they forget now. I remember there's a lot of people picking Corrales for that fight, and Floyd dominated.
Oh yeah, I remember too.
And there's you know, you don't always get the chance when you're too good to be an underdog and prove the odds wrong. So the fact that Devin did it in this fight, I think that means a whole lot. He didn't look okay. He didn't let go of the bombs, and it wasn't the most exciting fight in the card, especially with a fight like Abdullah Mason and Noakes on the same card, which really stood out. But this is the kind of guy Devin is, and I said it on my own channel. I said sometimes guys like this don't get the credit they may deserve, because they disarm you, they disassemble you. You know, they kind of disassemble the bomb instead of being the ones who drop the bombs. You know, and Devin is more of a guy who just strips you naked and be like, all right, bro, you got nothing left now. You know what I mean? Instead of disarming you or disassembling you completely, where even the layman can be impressed by that. While the guy who takes you apart little by little, sometimes he doesn't get enough credit, because it's not as sexy. You know, it's not as flashy. It's not as the big bombs aren't impressing the layman. But nonetheless, this was against probably the most talked about of the welterweight champions. Listen, we've talked about this welterweight division is a bit weak, but nonetheless, Norman was the most talked about of the welterweight champions. So he did it against Norman. He didn't do it against Barrios, who I think, like I'll repeat, that I'm not really that impressed with. He didn't do it against Rolly, who can be hot and cold depending on when you catch him. He did it against Norman, who, yeah, he'd been hot and cold in the past, but was on a little bit of a tear here. And as a young guy, was impressing a lot and was the talk of the welterweight division, especially with Ennis gone. And to do it against that guy and to do it the way he did it and score a knockdown in the process, you know, you got to give credit where credit's due, especially because you got to be a little bit of a psychiatrist here, or you know, you don't know where Devin's head was at after the Garcia situation and the JC Ramirez fight. That's why, Champ, I give you credit if you were that sure a month ago, because that's the only thing too with me. It's like, if it's a Devin Haney who's hesitant, and I don't know because I'm not in his head, you know, that every human being is different when they go through stuff like that. If it's a Devin Haney that's hesitant, he could run into trouble with a guy like Norman. If he's the Devin Haney who, you know, was confident at lightweight before the whole Ryan Garcia thing, yeah, you can see him outboxing Norman. But I wasn't sure which one would show up, because sometimes that guy never shows up when you go through a traumatizing situation. Some fighters change for good, and some fighters get through it. It's good to see Devin being back to his old self.
You talked about it. Garcia versus Barrios, champ at 147, a unification rematch. They were talking about it on air while the fight was happening, Chris. Would that be the biggest fight in boxing? Garcia, Devin Haney 2 for a unification possibility at 47.
Massive fight between two Americans. You got to do it on American soil. This is what American boxing needs, and it would be a rematch with so many storylines, so many narratives. Both guys champions. If Ryan is to beat Mario Barrios, I think regardless, Haney gets the winner of that, and you get a unification at 47. I think that's a good thing, a step in the right direction to unifying the welterweight division. Devin Haney could be that guy. I could see it. So yeah, I think the Ryan Garcia fight has first of all, a lot of dollar signs attached to it, a lot of attention attached to it, crossover fan bases. There's just so many storylines, and it would almost be like too good to be true if that were to happen. But Ryan has to get past Mario Barrios, and I know, Champ, as much as you are not sold on Barrios, or actually you are sold that he's not the goods. He still might be Ryan.
No
He
way.
still might be Ryan
Hey.
because Ryan is so hot and cold, dude. Hey, listen, if he goes out there and he fights the way that he fought against Rollies,
He's not going to do
he's
that
gonna
again.
lose.
He's not going to do that again.
He's gonna lose.
He's not going to do that again.
Well, I mean,
All
I didn't
right.
think he was going to do it the first time.
But with the fight-
I could not see Rollies beating Ryan.
The Batmobile was the Batmobile stalled. The Batmobile was stalled. The car they were ready. It played on his head. Listen, the cars they overdid it with that thing. Just get him in a regular ring in a regular situation. He knocks Barrios out.
Ryan looks like and acts like the Flash in terms of his speed, and that's what stalled. The Flash stalled. It wasn't even Batmobile. He might have come in the Batmobile, but he left his speed in the truck.
No, it was one of those things where you forget he had to wait so long that sometimes I'm telling you, Ben, if you're not
You can
mentally
cool down
ready,
a lot. Yeah.
you forget you even have a fight.
Yeah.
Because there's all kind of party atmosphere in Times Square. They build it up. I'm telling you, man, it's happened to me where sometimes I got to reassert myself mentally on the way to the ring. You kind of lose yourself, And
Yeah, but guess what, champ?
in that situation, I think that's what happened to the poor guy.
I can call you a champ because you woke up and you went out there and you fought.
No, Ryan's
Ryan
not a champ yet, but after he fights Mario Barrios, he'll be a champ. I get it. I'm one of the biggest critics too. The fact that Ryan hasn't been a champ yet and everybody gives him this hype and stuff like that. There is potential with the kid. He is hot and cold. I'm not as impressed as some people, but I'm also not as unimpressed as some other people. But he knocks out Mario Barrios for me. Like he's this guy.
He should listen. I'm saying he should win, but because we're essentially discussing the future fight with Haney potentially. But I cannot look past anyone against Ryan because of the way he performs.
But also, people also get on me because they think just because I talk good about somebody, all of a sudden I'm on his case. No, I'm on your case and I'm off your case just as quickly. You know what I mean? I still am not a believer that Ryan and Haney should fight again because I don't think Ryan deserves it. But what am I gonna do? Not do a unification?
But
what am I not gonna do?
Champ,
what am I not gonna jump on that bandwagon?
Champ,
if Ryan wins against Barrios, I mean, the unification with the whole past beef situation, dude, that's a monster fight. That's a huge fight.
Well, but in case you made that point about I don't know if Ryan deserves it. Who cares? Devin's gonna get paid. Devin's gonna have an opportunity to get a double belt.
I just hate that whole PD thing. It hurts me a little bit.
Unfortunately, it's not a necessary. It's an evil in the sport.
Yeah.
And it's so prevalent that it's almost like you gotta. I don't know how to handle the pet thing because it's a really touchy, sore subject for most people, a lot of people, as it should be. But it's a lot more prevalent than people want to acknowledge.
One thing this card did give us is lots of leftovers. We love that on Thanksgiving week. More to talk about here on Boxing Scene Today. Join us. Find out why millions are watching.
Abdullah Mason stole the show, though. Abdullah Mason stole the show.
Best fight of the night.
We'll talk about
best fight of the night.
We'll talk about that.